Part of it also is just change, and the magnitude of change. So imagine a client who ran from rural life deep in the Congo forest, and then lived the rest of their life in a refugee camp, maybe just in a tent, mostly being supplied with food and other needs for even a decade, because people stay in the refugee camp that long. And then they come into Minneapolis, and they're in the high-rise 18th apartment. They have to use gas to cook. They have to navigate the Minneapolis. It is changed like you've never seen it. And but it's good change. But the fact that it's so momentous, then those transitions take time. If you think on how societies have developed, the Western society did not come from a wood cooking society into kind of a gas high rise. It took time and people adjusted along the way. But you're simply kind of pulling this family through generations of change. And then the biggest challenge that comes there is that then this kind of momentous change, families do take it differently. In the African sense, I've tended to talk about it as a motif, almost like a journey motif. And in the traditional Africa, usually you would see that when there's not a good harvest in a season, that is the only time people traveled away from their original place. So they would make the journey to relatives in far land where they had, there's good harvest this year over there. So the relatives would say, come and you'll help us harvest our crops and all of that. And you also take some and then you'll take those back home. So a lot of people come to the US or other places because of the opportunity, almost like the place that has got good harvest. But the thing is that because the opportunities are so overwhelming in terms of the change, people react to those differently. The husband, for example, just said, really good opportunity, let's gather as much as we can, so we go help people at home. So you'll be just, in terms of harvest, you can imagine this person is just saying, let's get as much as we can, and then think about home and people who don't have it. The wife would say, this is a good place and these people are ready to give us a piece of land. Let's settle here, roast some corn and let's start a life. So that's, a metaphor for it. But you can imagine families coming here and the husband is completely frozen, doesn't want to engage with the society, all is thinking that whatever I get now, I have to build my house, I have to support my family. And the wife is saying, you're spending all your resources back there. Here's where we live now. The wife is learning the language, the guy is not learning the language. And so this divergence of goals and interest that is mitigated by the need for adapting to this momentous change starts to divide the family, because somebody is totally looking here. Somebody is unable to make that jump to look here and accept all this change. They are looking back. So down the line, somebody starts to hide money, because if I send money back, my wife will just say I'm wasting resources looking back, but my wife wants us to invest here. And the connectedness that's needed for family success starts to fade. And it's just a matter of time then when this divergence leads to discord that are unreconcilable. And then you start to see divorce, you start to see just all other family issues. Yeah, so I think I see that is one big area that a lot of African immigrants and I think other immigrants also struggle with. I think the one thing that you can also relate with is this idea of coming from communal societies and then really trying to navigate fairly individualistic communities. Mm-hmm. And that change can be hard. And so many immigrants that are coming, whether from Africa or Southeast Asia, they're coming from these communal societies where there was support, and then there was obligation to the community, and then here you're kind of on your own and trying to make that work. If your child is struggling, you're on your own. You have to deal with that. If you're having marital problems, you're kind of on your own. Where from Africa you could go back. So, I've seen that a lot of families, I had one family that I worked with that, a Somali family, and because of a lot of spread where they've settled almost everywhere in the world. So when they were having marital issues, this lady was trying to access family all over the world. So, accessing family in Canada to get advice, accessing family in the UK to get advice, accessing family in Australia to get advice, accessing family deep in the village in Africa to get advice. So the thing is also technology is allowing that to happen. But tell me the advice that their father or the grandmother in the village is going to give them that will help them survive marital issues in Minneapolis. It's not gonna work. And so then you see all these things that as much as they're trying to still catch on to this communal support, some of it has become irrelevant. And even for families are saying, well, your grandmother can tell you how to do marriage, but remember her perspective is from the village, and that does not work in a high-rise 10th floor in Minneapolis downtown. So I think that kind of just helping families navigate that and knowing what to access, what to block off, and then how to put family in a place that even though you still need to support people who are in need in Africa, then you don't send all resources, or you don't listen to all the advice that really does not apply, but kind of see what works for the family.